Hey guys, Tyler Berger here with Bass Fishing HQ, and today I really wanted to talk about the number one key to tournament fishing, the most important aspect of tournament fishing. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. All right guys, so just out here today, working in the garage. I'm trying to get all my tackle halfway organized. I'm supposed to get my boat back hopefully by the end of this week, hopefully for sure by the end of next week. But the thing is I'm just waiting on parts from Mercury, and it really stinks because everything's still backed up from a COVID, and all the manufacturing and the supply chain, everything's backed up. But anyways, I'm always kind of thinking about tournaments and how to win tournaments. I'm actually getting ready. I'm about to rig up some rods to go fish tonight, a Tuesday nighter. And I'm always just kind of thinking about tournaments. And today I really wanted to talk about what I think is basically the number one, the most important thing that you can do as a tournament fisherman to win tournaments and to do well and to be successful in tournaments. And guys, I'm gonna say it and it's gonna sound simple, and then I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more about it. But really, I think the most important thing that you can do as a tournament fisherman is fish your strength. Fish your strengths. Now, we hear that thrown around in bass fishing a lot. It's kind of cliche about fishing your strength, but what does that really mean? Like, what does it, if you kind of unpacked fishing your strength, what exactly does that mean? So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And first, I just kind of wanted to give you some examples of guys who have really kind of fished their strength out there on, you know, the big tours like Bassmaster and FLW, or what was FLW, and even Major League Fishing. That's kind of a whole different ball game in itself. But you know, for instance, if you look at Bill Lowen, you know, Bill Lowen just won his first BASS tournament. And although this is his first tournament win, he's actually had a lot of success, a lot of top tens, a lot of times making money in tournaments. And guys, to me, you know, we saw Bill Lowen win at Pickwick Lake this year, and he was doing what you would think Bill Lowen does, right? He was flipping a jig like that. That's kind of his bread and butter. Like, that's what he likes to do. He likes to fish shallow. He likes to flip and pitch, and he loves to do that. He grew up on the Ohio River, not too far from me, and we saw Bill Lowen win that tournament doing what he loved to do. There was a number of ways to catch them at Pickwick when the Bassmaster Elite Series was there this year. You could have fished offshore grass. You could have fished below the dam. You could have fished a lot of current-like situations. And flipping and pitching, although kind of simple, it's Bill Lowen's strength. It's what he likes to do. So when he got to the lake, more than likely, he just tried to find that bite. He tried to find the areas where he could catch them flipping and pitching. So another tournament that kind of comes to my mind is actually the FLW tournament. It was the FLW Tour Championship, the Cup, and it was down on Lake Wheeler when John Cox won. And guys, this was held during the middle of summer on Lake Wheeler. Wheeler is kind of known as a structure lake. It does have some offshore grass too, and that's typically the predominant pattern during the middle of summer when they were there. But as you guys would know, John Cox, what did he do? He got as far up a creek as he could possibly get. He fished a frog, he flipped, he did his own thing, and he won, I think, $500,000. It was either $300,000 or $500,000 in the FLW Cup. Guys, again though, doing what he knows, doing his strength. There's literally example after example after example of guys that basically go out and fish their strength when it seems like you should be doing something else, and they end up being the winners of tournament. I can think of Brandon Polinick in several tournaments, but one that comes to mind, I think they were fishing Bull Shoals, if I remember correctly, and this was several years back, and everybody was cranking the bank. You know, everybody was fishing the bank, the fish were up shallow, and although I think Brandon Polinick is very versatile as a fisherman, I know that one of his strengths is fishing offshore. You can tell at how comfortable he is using his electronics and things like that. And guys, he ended up winning that tournament by fishing offshore and by finding schools of pre-spawn bass. The fish, there were so many fish on the bank, but he did what he liked to do, and he did something different, which was fishing offshore, finding that pre-spawn school, using his electronics, doing his strength. And it seems like so much of the time, tournaments are won by guys when it seems like everyone should be doing this, and they're doing what they love to do, and they're catching them. Like that, you see a lot of times where first place is doing that, or second place. There was another tournament this year when they were on the Tennessee River. I can't remember the angler's name. Jeff Gustafsson was out in the middle of the river channel fishing rock piles with a Demiki rig. What he liked to do, something he was extremely comfortable with, his strength, and he goes on to win that when a lot of guys are fishing on the bank. It's so important that you fish your strengths when it comes to fishing tournaments. I kind of want to just impact what it means, because obviously you can see those examples, but guys, I think it really kind of makes you dig into yourself as a bass fisherman when you really think about fishing your strength. And you really kind of have to dig in and kind of look at your tournament results and what you like to do. So for instance, you may be a shallow water power type fisherman. You like flipping, you like frogging, square bills, spinner baits. That might be you. Or maybe you're kind of the opposite. Maybe you're an offshore fisherman. Maybe you like to fish deep. Maybe you like to find secluded rock piles and stumps or breaks. Maybe that's just what you like to do. Or maybe you're a finesse guy. Maybe you just prefer having that spinning rod in your hand, whether you're fishing a Ned rig or a small swim bait or a small crankbait or a Neko rig, whatever they call it. If, say for instance, you're going to a lake that you've never been to and you wanna do well, right? You have a tournament coming up, you wanna do well. In my mind, the best way for you to do well is to find the fish that you know how to catch, all right? Find your strength. Maybe you're coming up on a very clear water lake tournament, but you're a flipper and a pitcher, and typically you like to have a little bit of color in your water in order to kind of find that flipping and pitching bite. So instead of trying to do what everyone else does, if you go to clear water, you might have guys fishing offshore or fishing rock or fishing down the lake with jerk baits. That might be a typical pattern, ways that it's won a lot. Maybe instead of that, you being a flipper and a pitcher, you just go into the backs of creeks, you run up the river. What you try to find is your water. You're trying to find off-color water, dirty water, something where you can find a flipping and pitching bite. And it seems like even if you spent 2 or 3 days trying to find that one creek or that one place, you're probably more than likely going to find an area where you can catch them flipping and pitching. And if you can make that work during a tournament, then that is how you have success. It seems like to me, I've gotten stuck in a rut before because being from Ohio, you kind of grow up as being a very versatile fisherman, because there's more tournaments where I catch 5 bass on 5 different lures than I catch a limit on one lure. Like, that's just the way it is fishing in Ohio. You catch one on a crankbait here, you catch one dragging a tube over here, you catch one on a topwater over here. That's how a lot of tournament fishing in Ohio happens. So with that being said, because of the versatility, I have found a lot that I really feel like if I had kind of stuck to something during tournament practice, I would have found what I was looking for and I would have done better as a result. There's a few tournaments where I actually have done this. So for instance, I've told you guys about this before, Lake Chickamauga. A couple of years ago, we went there during the end of May, and during the end of May, you can really do whatever you want at Chickamauga. You can fish offshore, you can fish shallow, you can do everything you want. And I decided that I was just going to fish off the bank, right? I fished a little bit shallow during practice, but for the most part, I was spending 80% of my time fishing off the bank. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean deep. That just means off the bank. I wanted to fish cover and structure that I could find on my units and not something that I'm visibly looking at. And because of that, I found a grass flat, I found deep offshore schools, all these areas that had fish, and I was able to do really well because I dedicated so much of my time to that and I found it. Another tournament was Lake Norman like 3 or 4 years ago. Now this is kind of the opposite side of things. This was also in May of the year, and it was a time of the year where, you know, I could have really caught a lot of fish offshore fishing, and I actually knew a guy who fished primarily offshore and I think got 5th place in that tournament. But I did the opposite in this tournament. Instead of splitting up my time, I decided to go to the bank and really just fish shallow, really devoted my time to that. I just felt like doing it during that week. Like sometimes I feel like that is something that you should take in consideration. Like if you just feel like, man, I just feel like fishing a frog, I'm gonna go find frogfish, right? That can happen. You can go find frogfish. And so for me, I felt like fishing shallow. I ended up catching fish on a floating worm and some on a plopper. And I did really well in that tournament. I got like 13th out of 200 some boats in that tournament. But guys, what I'm trying to say is that in tournament fishing, I think if you focus on your strengths, I think that over the course of your career, whether that's nationally or whether that's just locally, maybe you just fish BFLs or maybe you just fish weeknight tournaments, whatever it may be, if you really focus on trying to find the fish that you like to catch, I think that you're going to do better over the course of time. You're going to win more tournaments. You're going to cash more checks. Now, on the flip side, sometimes when you're extremely hard-headed, you have to realize that you're going to bomb. Like, it's just going to happen. Like, you might say, I'm gonna fish shallow on this lake. I'm gonna find some flipping fish, and you simply don't find it. You fish all over, and those fish are just nowhere to be found, and you struggle in that tournament. That happens, but I feel like more times than not, if you try to find the fish that you like to catch, fishing your strength, whatever it may be, if you do that and you do that consistently instead of listening to the doc talk and trying to do what you should be doing, if you go do what you're comfortable with and fish your strength, I really think that you're gonna do better in tournaments, you're gonna cash more checks, you're gonna win more events. So guys, I hope that that all makes sense to you. If it does, give me a like below. If you're a tournament fisherman, comment below. Just say, hey, I'm a tournament fisherman, I love this, or tell me I'm a tournament fisherman and I hated this. Whatever you guys decide is fine with me. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.